Hello there everyone. Today I want to show you how to make these laced beaded Kumihimo earrings, and these are the ones that I've done here. So there's a nice pair of Kumihimo earrings where you have that braid in the middle creating that teardrop shape, and then I've used the SuperDuos to add that embellishment, that laced effect on the edge all the way around, and I've used bicones here to add a bit of bling as well. You can choose to use them or not. Now I made these earrings to kind of match a bracelet I previously made, so if you wanted to you could make a bit of a set. And that's this one here, so the laced beaded Kumihimo bracelet, and again this one I added bicones, but you could also do it without, so they obviously would work nicely as a set as well. So if you want to learn how to make these earrings, then keep watching. So these are the materials that we're going to need. I have my round Kumihimo disc here because we're making a round braid, and to make the braid I'm using this 0.4mm S-lon, and I'm just using a blue colour because it matches with the main beads that I'm going to be using in the braid. And I'm going to be using two kinds of beads here for making the braid. The first one is an 8-ohm Miyuki seed bead, and this colour is just matte opaque cobalt that I'm using. So these are going to be used the most, hence the blue cord. And then we need SuperDuos as well to incorporate into the braid as we're making it. And then we need to add two other kinds of beads here after we made the braid. So the first ones are these 11-ohm Miyuki seed beads. This specific one is a Silverland Duracoat Violet, the colour. And then also we need 4mm bicones, and these ones here are just blue ones that I'm using. And to add in these embellishment beads, you could say, we're going to be using this S-lon size D thread. And this is a purple one because the main beads that I'm using for the embellishment is purple as well. So just in case any thread shows through. And alongside the thread, I'm using a beading needle as well. And I then have my Kumihimo ends here to finish off the pieces. And these are 8mm. They're going to fit nicely because we have two ends that we need to get into them. And then obviously we need our earring findings as well and our jump rings to connect the pieces together. So let's get it all together and let's get started. And then we need some lengths of cord as well. So what I have here is 4 lengths of my S-lon that we're going to use for the braid of about 70 centimeters each. So what I then do as well is then put all the ends together like that, and then fold it over in half and put the ends together again just like that, so we can find where the middle is. And then I tie a regular overhand knot on that midpoint to know where it is, and also keep them together. And I've just tied a piece of scrap wire around it so we can then use that to pull it down through the disc. So I then took my cord here and I took the wire in the middle of the cord, put it down through the center, so the hole in the disc where the knot is as well. And then that braid is going to come out here on the back. And then I just distributed my cords like this around the disc, so I'm not focusing on the numbers. I've just basically put one cord on each side of the dots here all the way around, just for easy reference. And then to begin with here, we just need to start out our braid by making a little section of the braid before we add in any beads, or just using the cord. And what I'm going to do then is take my top left cord here on the disc, bring that down, stay on the left side of the bottom pair, and then I'm going to take my bottom right one, bring that up, and stay on the right side of the top one. Then I'm going to turn my disc for the next pair. Again, take my top left one, bring that down, and then take the bottom right one and bring that up. And that's basically the movement. So you just turn your disc again for the next pair and keep going like that until we have about 1 to 2 centimeters of braid here at the end. So now I have my little braid here coming out of the back. You can start to see it forming. And then we're basically at a position now where we need to start adding in our beads. So this is then how I've added the beads here to achieve that pattern that we need for the earring. And what I've done is I've taken a picture of this setup here. I put that on my website, and then what I've done is put a link to my website down in the description box. So if you need to have a bit of a closer look, then you can go there and have a look, along with the text description as well. But then just to go through it here as well, so as you can see, most of the cords have only got the 8/0 on. So that's the top 2 cords, the bottom 2, the top one on the right side here, and then the bottom one on the left side. And they all have 24 8/0 on. And then the last 2 cords here are the ones we then have our SuperDuos on as well. And then the first one here is the bottom one on the right side, and what I start out with is 3 8/0 first of all, then I have a SuperDuo, 3 8/0, a SuperDuo, and it continues alternating like that all the way to the end. So what I have in total here is 5 SuperDuos separated out with the 3 8/0, and I also finish on the 3 8/0. And then the other one here is the top one on the left side, and I start out with 1 8/0 on that. And then I go into the pattern of 1 SuperDuo, 3 8/0, 1 SuperDuo, 3 8/0, continue that, and I have 6 SuperDuos in total, and I also finish with just the 1 8/0 on the other side of that final SuperDuo. Now the bead setup here on my cords is to work with the way that I work with my braid. So what I do is I take my top left one, bring that down, then the bottom right one and bring that up, just like I did in the beginning here with just the cord. So if you work in that same way, so you start with either the top left one or if you start with the bottom right one because that's the same as each other, then you want to set up the beads just like this. But if you start with the top right one or the bottom left one, which is the same as each other as well, you will need to set up the beads differently than this in order to get the same pattern at the end. And that way is basically a mirror image to this. So imagine you have a mirror in front of your disc and then you need to set up all these beads in that mirror image instead. So that means the top two would swap with each other. Obviously that doesn't matter because they're the same anyway, and it's not the cords, it's just the positioning of the beads here. The same with the bottom two, but it's just a principle because again that doesn't matter, they have the same beads on. Now as for the sides, that's where it will matter. So the top ones, the one on each side, would have to swap over the middle, the positioning of the beads again, and the bottom one's there. So basically where the SuperDuos are placed, that's what would really change in the setup. But then once you've added all the beads here, regardless of what setup you need to use for yours, the way you work with your braid, then we need to start adding the beads into the braid as we keep making it. So like I mentioned, my next cord that I'm due to take is the top left one there. So what I need to do is as I'm releasing the cord, I then take the very first bead that I run into, and then make sure that I let that drop down as I'm releasing the cord, right there into the middle. And then just make sure that your bead tucks underneath the cords in the middle as well, the ones that are crossing over. Then bring the cord down, and then that's added into the braid. And then I take my bottom right cord here, let one bead drop down, make sure it goes into the middle, and if it doesn't go under the cord by itself, which it might do sometimes, but if it doesn't, just tuck it in with your finger, like that, and then bring the cord up. And then turn your disc here, just like before, to the next pair, and you just keep going like that. So really, the most important thing with this is to make sure the beads stay underneath the cords in the middle, because that's how they're going to end up on the outside of the braid, which is where we want them to be for this one. And that's how we achieve that, by making sure they stay underneath the cords. Because if they end up above the cords here, so if I don't make sure that it's dropped down underneath, but ends up sitting on top of them, then the beads would actually end up on the inside of the braid, which is also a look, but we don't want that for this one. I then added a few more beads here into my braid, and I just wanted to show you a bit up close how I do it, but then also adding in one of the SuperDuos. So I need to take my top left one here next. So I release the cord and drop down the one bead. This is a regular one, just like the others I've been adding in. Get that into the middle, underneath the cord. And then on this one down here, the bottom right one, is where I then have my very first SuperDuo. So just let that drop all the way down, just like the others. And there really isn't any difference in this, so I'm just going to let it drop under the cord or tuck it in, and then you'll find that it will most likely naturally sit. So the hole that we're going through with the cord in the bead is going to sit inwards, and the open hole that we haven't used is going to stick out from the braid. That's exactly what we want it to do. It will most likely do it naturally, but otherwise just keep an eye on it and making sure that that's how it's going to end up sitting. And then turn it and continue. So taking your next cord and let the bead drop down. And there you go. And then just keep doing this until you used up all of the beads. So now I used up all the beads here. Then I want to just finish off this end as well, just basically how it started out. So we need to make another little section of braid with just the cord. So I just continue here without adding in any beads. So just continue the exact same way you braid. And we then also again need about the same length, so 1 to 2 centimeters. On the other end here, and then cord will naturally singe in at the end, just because we're then not adding in the beads. So once I have that little section of braid on this end as well, I just want to secure this end with my cord so we can then securely take it off the disc here without it coming undone, because we've got some more work to do with it. So what I'm going to do is go to the pair that I was due to take next, so not the one that I just used. Then I'm going to take cords from that pair that are diagonally opposite each other, release them from the disc, bring them over the middle, and then tie a knot, and then tighten that right down at the very end of the braid. Then I'm going to take the other cords from the same pair, and then again over the middle and tie a knot. Just like that. And then move to the other pair and then basically do the exact same thing. So take cords diagonally opposite each other, and just tie that knot over the middle, right at the end of the braid. Because doing it this way also then avoids adding too much bulk to the end, but finishes it off nice and securely. And then the final cords over the middle and tie a knot. And because this is the final one, I prefer to just make another knot, so basically a double one here. Just holds it a bit more securely in place, rather than just the one will more likely become undone. So there we have the braid, and it looks like this here. And you can see the SuperDuos that we added to it are just sat on one side of the braid basically, and they're going to be sitting outwards there. So when we shape it, they're going to end up sitting in that direction outward from the braid and from the whole shape. So we have this braid. What I want to do is finish just off the end here to get it ready for the next step. So I just want to get rid of all the excess cord. So I'm going to put a bit of glue around the ends where they're coming out from, cut off the excess so then that's ready. And then this end here I'm just going to be taking off my wire that I used, the scrap wire there. And then we have this braid ready for the next step that we're going to add in the embellishment, you could say. And we also obviously need 2 of these because we are making a pair of earrings. So you need 2 of these braids, and then also so we have them both ready for the next step. So then we need to get a needle and thread ready here. So what I've just taken is about an arm span long. It doesn't need to be too much because it's just an earring we're making. And then I put my needle down one end, put a decent tail through, and then I just tied a knot down the other end, tied a couple of times just to be a bit of a stopper so it won't go through the braid. And then to begin with here, I just want to attach my thread onto my braid here. So I'm just going to start on one end, and then we want to go through just the braided part with no beads first of all to attach it. So I'm just going to take my needle, make my way through there, just right on the end. Because then to secure it, I'm going to go back and forth a few times. Obviously there's a knot, but I do prefer to go back and forth through the braid a couple of times. Just adds a bit extra security to it. So I'm just a little bit closer down towards the beads now, just because what we want to do is actually then connect the 2 ends together so we have the shape that we need, because that's what we need to do to be able to then add in the beads on the edge. So I'm going to bring the other end around to get this teardrop shape, and then I'm going to start using this thread before we add in anything else to actually connect them together. So I'm going to hold it in place here. So basically the 2 ends just meet, and also where the beads end in the braid, they sit right next to each other. Then I'm going to go back through the braid again, and then go straight over to the other side. So the other end there, and that's how we connect them. Just make sure to catch it. Straight through there. And then just pull it all the way through. And then obviously you can see we pull it tight and they're going to be sitting together nicely. So all you want to do now is just go back and forth through this again, both braids together, and make sure to pull it tight. So go back through again to the opposite side. Just every time you go back through your braid again, just move a couple of millimeters or so to the side of where you're coming out from. Chances are you won't go through the exact same way anyway, but just to avoid the risk of it. I'm just struggling getting through the braid a bit. I think I have some of the glue there. So just through the braid again, straight over to the other side, and just do this a few times to make it nice and secure so we have a steady shape that we can then work from. So now I've connected the 2 sides there, the 2 ends. Then you just want to make sure to get your needle and thread right down close towards the beads, just on one of the sides, it doesn't really matter which one. So you want to get out through the braid there right before the first bead. And where you want to get through is, if you're looking at your SuperDuo where that's placed in the braid, you're going to have 2 seed beads right in front of that are set next to each other, and then you're going to have a seed bead on the other side of them, so straight across from the SuperDuo. So you have the SuperDuo and a seed bead with 2 other seed beads in between that set next to each other. So we need to get to that seed bead in the braid that's right across from the SuperDuo. So to do that we need to go through the first seed bead here on the edge, and then, because I'm coming out of the braid right before that seed bead, so just get through that and then get through to the next one. It's kind of at a diagonal there to go through them, and then that second one I'm coming out of now is then the one that's right across from the SuperDuo. So you just want to go through those 2 seed beads in the braid. So just like that. So now we have the thread in the right position to start adding in our beads. So I'm just going to get my beads ready here. So first of all I have the lever nose that I'm going to be using. Just get a few of them out. And then also we need the bicones ready. So just like that. So I then take my needle again here, just get them a little bit out of the way. And then where we've ended up here, like I said, in that seed bead that's in the braid, we need to get from that up until the very first SuperDuo, in the outer hole of the SuperDuo. So instead of just having loose thread there, we want to just cover that with some beads. So I'm going to add 3 of my seed beads to my needle, and then go from that bead in the braid and then go through the first SuperDuo in the outer hole that hasn't been used, and that's in the perfect fit to bridge that gap between the beads so we don't have any loose thread or anything. So that's the first little step. So now we're going to be between the SuperDuos, and we're going to kind of add the proper embellishment. And the very first step here is to get just a bunch of our seed beads on, and what we need first of all is to get from the first SuperDuo, skip the second one, and then go through the third one. So to reach that far, that distance, I'm going to need to add 14 seed beads. So I have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then 13 and 14. And obviously I just want to double check that, and I have the beads I need. So I then take them, you can let them drop down if you want to. Take my needle, come out from the first SuperDuo, skip the next one, go through the third one in the outer hole, and pull it all the way through. And then the seed beads are going to sit there, basically going along the outside of it, just nicely. And then we need to get from the third one here to the next one, so that's the third one, skipping the fourth one, and then going through the one after that, so this is the fifth one. So we're constantly kind of going through the next SuperDuo, but we're skipping one in between. And for this one, this is actually where I want to start adding in some bicones as well. So here I want to add 7 seed beads, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Then I want to take a bicone, that's going to be in the middle bead, and then we need another 7 on the other side of the bicone. 3, 4, 5, 6, and the 7th. So that's all the beads here now. And then I jump from the SuperDuo I'm coming out from, skip one, and go through the next one in the outer hole. Pull it through, and then that sits just like that. And the next one here, we need to do the same thing. So that means 7 of the seed beads, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the 7th. Then 1 bicone, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the 7th seed bead. Again, skip one SuperDuo, go through the next, pull it through, and then there you can see that's basically the midpoint on the bottom part of it. And then you just want to repeat on the other side, so that means this one we're going to be doing now was the first one that we just did where we added the bicone. So that means we want to add the 7 seed beads again. 5, 6, and the 7. 1 bicone. And then the other 7 seed beads on the other side of the bicone to make sure it ends up in the middle. 3, 4, 5, 6, and the 7th. Skip the next SuperDuo, go through the next one there after it, and then you have your 3 along the bottom where we have a bicone in, and just the first one there without the bicone, just with the seed beads, and that's in the one we reach on this side now as well. And that's where we remember we added the 14 seed beads. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 and 14, and I'm just going to double check that. And when I have the beads on there, I just, through the last gap here, fill in the last gap, so jump through the very last SuperDuo that's in the braid and pull it all the way through. And there we go. And now you can see you have this little shape. So that's kind of the first go around, where you can see we have some SuperDuos that we missed out, the ones that we skipped. So we do need to go back and catch them. But first thing we need to do is just finish off this side as well. So I'm just going to add the 3 seed beads at last here, which are the same ones that the very first ones we added, just to get from the bead in the braid up to the very first SuperDuo. Now it's the same thing, just in reverse. So I'm coming from the last SuperDuo, and then I need to go down into the bead in the braid that's straight across from it. We just have 2 seed beads in the braid that are sat next to each other. So go through that one across, and then also get through that here, through the next bead in the braid after that, so the one that's just furthest on the edge, and pull that all the way through. And you can see by just adding those 3 seed beads, we don't have any loose thread showing or anything. So now that I've done my first go around here, from one side to the other, filled in all those beads, what I then want to just do is take my needle, go back through the braid where it's just the cord again. So basically just how we started out. Just want to go through that braid. You can go through it on this side a couple of times alone, just to kind of then help fasten these beads in place. Difficult to get my needle through the braid. Again, probably where I have some of the glue that I finished it off. We'll go through the braid, and again go through it a few times, but then what you then want to do is get into position for the next step, which is the second go around, to add in the next round of the beads, the embellishment there. And I'm going to go through 2 ends together, and I want to get back to the other side as well again. Really it doesn't really matter what side you start from, but I'm going to go back to the other side, and then we need to go reach the point, which is then actually going to be the second SuperDuo in the one that we haven't used yet. Then I've reached one side here of my braid, and I'm coming out still through the corded part, but just before where the beads start on the braid, because now I want to make my way, like I said, down through the braid and to that second SuperDuo in, but the first one in line that hasn't been used in that first go around. And the way that I'm going to do that is simply by going back and forth through the braid, working my way downwards. So I'm coming out through the braid, and then I'm going to go down a little bit. I'm not going through the beads in the braid, but I'm going through the braid in between the beads, just from one side to the other. So pull it through, and then what happens is when you pull the thread tight, if you pull it and you get a little click almost, it means it's pulled down actually in between the beads and into the braid, which is what we want, because then that hides the thread. And then again move to the side a bit, in between the beads, not through the beads. We'll go straight through the braid to the other side, just finding the path through. And then as I'm pulling this, again on this side, the thread will nestle in, and you can feel a little click in the thread when it goes in between the beads. And then you just keep doing that until you reach that first SuperDuo. And I'm going to actually get to the underside, you could say, when we're looking at it from here. We don't need to go on the upper side of the SuperDuo, we actually need to go below it. Because I'm then coming out through the braid right in front of that SuperDuo, because what we then need to do is go back through the hole, but actually the hole that's already been used in the braid itself. So you say the bottom one there. So just make your way through that, get your needle through just the SuperDuo, and then pull your thread all the way through. And then what we need to do is get to the outer hole. So just go from that inner one that we just went through, and then just move to the outer hole, going then in the opposite direction than what we just did. So just like that. And then we have our thread now in position and ready to add in the next few beads. So I'm just going to get my beads ready again here. So the bicones, and then also my seed beads. And then the first one here, we need to jump from the SuperDuo that we're coming out from with the thread, skip over one, and then jump through the next one, which is then the next one in line here that we didn't use in the first go around. So that's all the ones we're going to use now are the SuperDuos that we didn't use the first time. So here I've already added my beads, and what we need to jump from this one to the next one is now 15 of our seed beads. So I just go from there, and then now what we need to do is also go in the right direction. So I'm coming out of that SuperDuo with my thread coming out above the seed beads I've already added in the first go around. So I'm coming out over the top, and I'm going to go around the side and then underneath the beads in the next section here to then come through the SuperDuo and then come out over the top again. So just kind of have the needle going through a bit diagonally. So you pull it tight, and then you can see it's going to loop around just like that. So I'm coming out from the top, go around the top of the outside, and then come through the next one from underneath. But then remember to come out over the top again. And that's basically the direction we're going to continue to go in all the way around to keep it continuous. So next here, we then need to add in a bicone in this one because it's in between the other bicones. So it's going to be the same thing. It's going to be 7 seed beads. 4, 5, 6, and the 7th. And then the bicone to be the middle one. Just get that on there. And then another 7 beads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the 7th. And same principle, go around, coming from the top, over the top of them, around the outside, and then down to the next section below those beads, through this SuperDuo, and then out towards the top again. And then I pull this tight, and that's going to nestle just nicely along like that. And you can see that's what it's going to look like, obviously along the other side as well. And then you just want to do the same thing. So this is one half, we're going to do the exact same thing on this half. So from here to the next one, you want to add the same thing we just did, so the 7 seed beads, 1 bicone and the 7 seed beads. Go to the next SuperDuo. From that one up to the last one on this side is where you want to add the 15 seed beads, like the first one we did over here. And then that's basically 2 go arounds, and that's pretty much it done. All you're going to need to do then is go back through the braid, just like we did here to get to the SuperDuo. Now we need to get from the last SuperDuo up to the end of the braid again up here, just so we can really then finish it off. So then once you have your piece here, you made your way all the way back out to the end with the thread, then you just got to finish it off really. So I'm just going to go through again a few times, and you want to also tie some knots here to secure it fastened. You can cut off the excess, and then all you have to do is finish it off so we can obviously turn it into an earring. So I'm going to take my Kumihimo end here, just add a bit of glue on the inside, and then all it does is goes down right over the end, and it fits just perfectly. And it makes it also nice and neat just to finish it off that way. And then on that Kumihimo end we have a loop where we can attach our earring finding using a jump ring. So that's how you want to finish it off. I have a tutorial where I show how to use these Kumihimo ends if you're not sure how to. Like I said, it's just adding some glue and then letting it dry. And then do that. Obviously you want to make 2 of them so you have a set. But then once you've done that, you'll have your finished pair of earrings. So here are then the finished earrings. You can see you have the braid there kind of in the middle, creating that teardrop shape. And then we added the embellishment afterwards by using those SuperDuos in the braid. And I just added those bicones on the bottom to give a little bit of bling. But you could obviously also just add the seed beads if you didn't want the bicones, and just have that intertwining lacy effect all the way around. So that's completely up to you. I just wanted to use it with the bicones. So that's how you make these earrings, Beaded Kumihimo ones, with that lace effect all the way around. So I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and thank you very much for watching.